This is TV Podcast Industries, where we're talking about The Boys, Season 1, Episode 4, The Female of the Species.
If they let us into the military, then this will never happen again. That is my solemn promise to you. Right, Maeve? Talk to your congressman. Talk to them. They'll listen to the people. And together we will make sure that this never happens to our great nation ever again. God bless you. God bless America.
We hear you, Homelander!
And I hear you, brother! I hear you! And the world hears you! And very, very soon, my friend, whoever did this to us will hear from all of us!
Homelander! 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 Homelander!
Welcome back to TV Podcast Industries, where we are talking about The Boys, Season 1, Episode 4, The Female of the Species. And if you don't have that song in your head right now, what is wrong with you? First of all, my name is Chris. I am one of your boys who will be here taking you through this episode. I'm joined by my illustrious co-hosts. Gentlemen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, welcome back, everybody. I'm Derek, one of your other co-hosts.
Yeah, hello there, boys and girls. It is John, one of your other hosts as well. Yes, we are all about The Boys here on TV Podcast Industries, and we're here with the female of the species.
Yes, if you want to hear any of our other discussions about previous shows like Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, any of the MCU, or if you're interested in checking out Pennyworth, none other than Batman's Butler prequel series. I'll let you boys describe it better, but that's all of it is available over on tvpodcastindustries.com. And don't forget, if you have feedback on that or any of the shows, including The Boys, you can leave us a voicemail or subscribe on any drunk or sober, good or evil, Boys or Seven podcast player.
We've just been taking our description for Pennyworth from Sean Pertwee, who described him as Batman's Batman. So we have Batman's got a backstory, is our description of Pennyworth. So, and it's been pretty good. It's been very violent, similar in style and tone a little bit to The Boys, actually, because it doesn't hold back on the type of stuff it puts on screen or the type of language it uses at all. And if you've watched 5 seasons, 100 episodes of Gotham and think that it ties in with that on the same level and the same language and the same level of violence, it's a lot worse, a lot more violent, a lot more brutal.
Absolutely. Certainly fits quite nicely in with The Boys with some of the stuff. Yes. And I think the other nice description we've done about Pennyworth is it is Gotham by lamplight and neon light as well. It's this really nice mishmash between kind of ye olde London town with things like Jack the Ripper, gaslighting, sort of people being hung up in cages and public executions, along with the swinging 60s Soho bathed in neon and really interesting tone to the show for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes, I will be taking my royalty check for coining that phrase.
Absolutely. And of course I should have said, yes, our one and only Chris Jones did introduce that phrase, Gotham by lamplight.
Yes, he did. And his reward for that is getting to introduce this podcast. Chris, let's get on to The Boys.
Yes, very quickly, gentlemen, I think it's about time, as you said, to jump into the episode. So, first of all, we always go through the episode details. So, Derek, do you want to take us away with who it was written and directed by?
Absolutely. The episode was written by Craig Rosenberg. He wrote 2 episodes for this season of The Boys, and he probably got his connection to get onto this show because he wrote 4 episodes of Preacher, which comes from the same creators, as we know. So, probably got a little bit of a start over on Preacher and then moved over here onto The Boys. So, great to have him on board for this kind of big episode. This is like a massive episode. Really.
Yeah, massive.
Huge. And you can see definitely some of the Preacher subtext text coming through, but we'll get onto that later.
Maybe.
Yeah, and do you think he had to learn dolphin for this one?
I kind of think those noises were taken from Flipper from the 60s, to be honest. I'm not sure whether they have re-recorded dialogue.
Don't get into the water with Flipper.
I know, I wonder if that's the actual gag, that the exact same noises are being used, and that's what Flipper was trying to say back in the 60s. Anyway, the episode was directed by Fred Toye. He's worked with Carl Urban a couple of years ago back on his TV show, Almost Human. Directed a couple of episodes of The Good Wife, Westworld, and Person of Interest. But interestingly, he's directing 2 episodes of the TV version of Snowpiercer, which is coming out on Netflix later on next year, I think it is. It was originally made about a year ago, the first season of the show, and it got approved for a second season already. So actually, there are 2 seasons being produced for Netflix. So a guaranteed second season on a Netflix show seems to be at odds with their usual model. So kind of nice to hear that's coming. If you haven't seen the movie Snowpiercer, features Chris Evans, and it's a really good, fun, interesting action movie. Check it out. I think it's also available on Netflix now as well.
Yeah, it's a kind of a really intriguing sci-fi, and I reckon actually a TV show could work really well with this. Yeah. I enjoyed the film for sure. Yeah. But because it's an hour and a half, it's like there's so many different kind of things going on that you could imagine along that train.
Absolutely.
It's also based on great source material of a French comic, so there's a good few issues on that one. So if you're interested and you enjoy the Netflix show, make sure you check out the comic book and the source material.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because a lot of sci-fi has this concept of this moving vehicle. You know, we saw, there's the Snowpiercer. There's also Mortal Engines. And of course, Christopher Priest has got another one as well, where again, a bit like Mortal Engines, you have this city sort of on wheels moving ahead of darkness constantly. So interesting concept.
Yeah. Constantly moving, unable to get off and get away.
Speaking of interesting concepts, John, do you want to tell us what they gave you this episode with your synopsis?
Sure. As Billy Butcher persuades CIA Deputy Director to take the threat of Supes entering the Defense Department seriously, Vought International used Queen Maeve and Homelander to deal with a hostage situation on a plane over international waters to demonstrate their value in the defense of the USA. However, some of the 7 fare less well, as Kevin, aka The Deep, deals with fishy insecurities that lead to a daring breakout from Oceanland that ends in a dirty dolphin eating tarmac and the potential loss of sponsorship for Kevin. Meanwhile, the boys act on Popclaw's intel, and they delve further into A-Train's involvement in the illicit exchange of Compound V. In Chinatown, they track down where he supplies the substance, but also come across the female. Held captive and jacked up on Compound V, her butcher skills are all too evident, as Frenchie opens her cell. With her escape, Frenchie, Butcher, and Mother's Milk race against A-Train to find the female, while Hughie Campbell is ordered on a date with Starlight by Butcher in order to clone her mobile phone and gain more intel on the Supes and Vought. With the female sedated and rescued from the grasp of A-Train, the airline hostage situation high above the Atlantic turns from a happy ever after rescue to a botched rescue. Homelander and a reluctant Queen Maeve abandon the passengers to their grim fate after their intervention goes badly wrong, and the plane crashes into the sea. In the aftermath, Homelander covers up the true events, turning the tragedy into a win for Vought International and the need for superheroes in the armed forces.
And what a rousing speech it was. So before we get into that, just to give you guys, if you're just joining us for episode 4, we usually each choose our top moments of interest throughout the episode, the protagonist section, which we have lovingly dubbed the boys moment, the 7th moment, which is obviously our antagonists and bad guys, and any other sprinkling of outstanding moments that we found in the episodes. So gentlemen, I think it's about time we kick in to our moments. So Derek, why don't you kick us off with your boys moment?
Sure, absolutely. Our first boys moment, really, or my first boys moment, is the date for Hughie and Annie, because I do think it's quite interesting. This is something that everybody's been kind of warning about, that the 7 are bad people underneath everything. And I'm kind of intrigued by this whole thing that goes on between Hughie and Annie, because Annie seems like a lovely character. She seems, beyond reproach. She seems absolutely lovely. I love the relationship they're building up between Hughie and Annie. But what I think is interesting in the show is that actually she is lying the entire time during their meeting, during their conversations. Everything that she says is basically a lie. I'm not even too sure whether that whole conversation about was her first kiss at her senior dance when she was 18. I'm not sure whether even that was true, because she recants it all later on, during these conversations. You know, we hear that Annie constantly hides her true self from everybody, because in the past, when she's revealed what she's like and revealed that she can beat up anybody, given the opportunity, effectively, she's been dumped by people. Guys haven't called her back. They've talked about her behind her back. Nobody likes her to be her. So she has decided to protect herself by creating this persona and not tell Hughie anything. Like, I love how it twists in that conversation where Annie's saying to him, you know, we've been here all night and I'm not too sure whether I get your vibe. I'm noticing something wrong about you. And he goes, well, what you're noticing about me is that I don't trust anything you're saying. And then that's when she reveals who she really is, effectively, that she is this person that could have destroyed him in bowling in about 3 rounds. She could easily beat him up, and he doesn't really care, which I like. But we also have this wonderful little reveal that, you know, he's still going through the PTSD that happened after the death of his girlfriend. We see the ghost of Robin appear in the room with him, and that does encourage him to carry out the mission that he's been sent there for. It's not just a date with Annie. He's there to clone her phone and turn on the speaker, effectively, so they will have access to inside the Tower of the Seven, so they'll get all the information out of that. So I really like these scenes between these characters. I really like this setup.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think in the same way that Starlight's not being herself there, as you were saying, then, you know, Hughie as well. I was kind of there going, you know, because Hughie and Starlight have had that moment where he hasn't known who she actually is, and she's hidden who she actually is, that there's a connection there. And now, falling in love may be a little too strong, because obviously you have that, as you say, that PTSD moment. But does he have a soft spot, a sensitive side of friendship kind of element to Hughie? Or, based on the last episode, you know, you have that conversation with Mother's Milk where he says, at any price. And is this just an act? And obviously the PTSD at least prompts him to then clone her phone when she goes off to the loo. And it's just one of those things where, you know, is he as much in an act as she is, or is there something genuine from his side between him and Starlight? And now that you mentioned that she is sort of hiding her skills here, for me, having not read the comics, I'm just really, really intrigued to know, is she also a bit of a placement by Vought, in the sense that I get the sense that Billy Butcher and that group have been involved dealing with, in some way, like with the Mallory files, with superheroes and the Supes of Vought before. And so what I'm wondering is this whole thing of Billy Butcher bringing the boys back together again and recruiting Hughie Campbell, is that something that is totally at this moment unknown to Vought? Or is this something, you know, or is she just being kept as a watch on him because of what happened with A-Train? I mean, it would seem excessive, but I don't know. This whole relationship just doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah, there is a distinct, they've diverged from the comics on this one. So for part of me, I'm really interested to see how they're going to play this story. So it's definitely an interesting play, and I'm wanting to see how it plays out, because there is that question at the beginning of this, both of them are lying to each other. Why Hughie's there, what she was lying in more terms of hiding herself. I do like that reveal though, where she just turns around and like destroys the pins in one fell swoop, and we get the story of her knocking out the guy who squared up to her previous first kiss. So I do like that, because it does again show the human element of Starlight. The ghost scene is interesting though. Hughie's the PTSD coming back is really interesting. He's there and he's just seeing Robin as a ghost, kind of judging him.
I just love it.
It's interesting to see how that will continue to play out.
Yeah, you can almost hear her tapping her foot on the floor, going, "Just get on with it, will you? You're not supposed to be here on a lovely date with this girl. You're supposed to be tapping her phone, right? Get on with it." It's really interesting. I love the way it's done, and the initial instance of the PTSD. What I thought was interesting, the way it was shown, was actually on another alley just a couple of rows up, it's someone dropping a ball really heavily and you hear the smash and bang effectively, and that suddenly wakes him to go, oh my God, in this really scared moment. Maybe somewhere as noisy as a bowling alley is not where you want to be going if you're getting scared of loud noises like he is at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that will continue to play out. Will he overcome it, or will it kind of, to a degree, cripple him in the next bout of action they have to go through?
Yeah. And I think to answer your question, John, I do think in any other circumstance, if these two had met the way they've met, everything that they've gone through, they absolutely would be going into a relationship. But Hughie feels so bad about everything that's gone that he's had to go through, and the death of Robin. And the whole reason he's here is to get more information and effectively pay back for the death of Robin, that he can't entertain the idea of having a relationship. But absolutely, he would have a relationship with her in any other circumstance.
Absolutely. And moving forward, someone from those two has to make a decision as to whether they continue on their course of action, as with Hughie with the boys, or, defends Vought International, or defends sort of just nice people.
Yeah, I certainly don't think Annie's going to be too happy if she finds out what Hughie's done, to be honest. So
no.
You might want to keep that quiet or run away or something. But talking about relationships, John, do you want to take us on with your boys moment?
I do. Just quickly though as well, there is a really nice phrase that Hughie says when he's told to basically go out with Starlight. He goes, I normally don't go out after a gory massacre following the events with the female. So yeah, I quite like that. Yes, my protagonist moment, the boys, is, we find out Butcher had a wife here. We see a fairly, really nice scene of him and his wife in bed cuddling, but then, it pans back to reality and to the present, where he's lonely in his bed, and even with the dog bed there as well next to the bed. So, Butcher has had other things in his life in the flashback, much closer, had those personal moments. And now, obviously, that has been stripped. And at least for me, I'm suspecting that is part of the reason for his pathological hatred for Supes. And I like the fact that, it all seems fairly bleak for Butcher here. He's got his microwavable breakfast wrap, which seems fairly dire.
Oh, yeah.
And then, to really cap that off, he seems to be watching old CCTV footage, of his wife in a park. It's dated back to, 2012. So, yeah, things are not good for Billy Butcher, in the confines of his own apartment, and when the door is closed. It seems like he is also dealing with loss many years after the fact, and probably how that loss came about. But I'm really interested to see more flashbacks around this. What is his motivation? It seems really interesting, because in some ways, is that why he connects with Hughie Campbell? He sees maybe a kindred spirit there, because Hughie just lost his girlfriend, Robin. So I really like this touch. And I like that, you get the sense from that sweet conversation. Butcher and his wife are in bed, where they're talking about the Spice Girls and going to a Spice Girls concert. And, that kind of plays out, later on in this episode as well, which I think is really nice, where, I like the Spice Girls. I've got their first album, absolutely loved it. And I absolutely concur with Billy Butcher. Like the boys, they are so much better together. They're awesome. Separately, maybe not so good. In fact, dare I say it, apart from maybe Sporty Spice with her first album, the albums that came out from the Spice Girls individually did make my ears bleed.
Hey, he likes Jerry, okay? Leave Ginger Spice out of this.
Oh, he hates Jerry. Everybody hates Jerry. She was just the first to get out there, so she got 3 albums out before everybody realized she was rotten. That's all.
Welcome to your podcast on where we review the Spice Girls discography.
I usually try not to say too many bad things about anybody on this podcast, but I will definitely say I'm on the side of Billy Butcher. I would have to cut off my own ears if I was to go and see one of their reunion tours, no matter whether it's their last ever or their first ever one. Not for me, man.
But speaking of cutting off your ears, we do get introduced in my boys moment in a fantastic female who could actually pull your ears off.
Probably.
Yes.
Yes, I am talking about the female of the species and how she is more deadly than the male. I swear this was probably the last time I'm going to make that joke.
It's not.
Probably,
No, it's
but
not.
I don't think
I think
so.
it's probably going to be in your wrap up as well, Chris.
Yeah, probably. No, this is my moment. I loved this whole kind of detective part where the boys are literally tracking a train to the noodle shop and they come across. I wasn't sure what they were going to come across. Like, I was not expecting them to come across the female in the cage. Mm-hmm. So the female is a character from the comic books.
Yes.
She's been part of the source material for a long time. Mm-hmm. This potentially is a divergence, but we won't know from the overall source material. But this introduction is brilliant because you get that connection of Frenchie and the female being cemented initially straight away. Mm-hmm. You get also the sense and visual spectacle of how powerful and terrifying the female is.
Yeah, absolutely.
When the boys jump into and lock themselves in the room and she goes after the rest of the Chinese men, it is brilliant.
Yeah.
Gut-wrenching, but brilliant.
Well, yeah, and eye-wrenching and face-wrenching and everything wrenching.
It was like WWE on steroids, literally on Compound V, because I love the fact, you've got the thumbs in the eyes moment where she literally like buries them and then sort of just like turns his head 180 degrees. This was like Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Macho Man Randy Savage, all completely high. And it was a great kind of scene, just like that kind of cat-like pounce, and just everything by hands. Cause I was trying, it's like she got like spiky fingernails or something, but it's just like the sheer strength. And then, to have the guy like top himself effectively because, he doesn't want to be mauled like that. Then
he knows he's done.
Yeah,
it's like he's in a room with the xenomorph alien. It's like a scene you'd see in Predator movies. As the alien creature is coming towards you to cut you in half, you shoot yourself because you don't want to go through the pain of what they'd put you through. Really, really good scene, and really, the speed that she has. We learnt last episode about what Compound V can do to some other characters last week with Popclaw, and this episode we see Compound V once again being used in the brutality that can be inside of the female. It is really interesting. I know, Chris, you did say it, but just to underline, we are calling her the female because that's the character name in the comic book. It's only said in the episode once. Billy Butcher calls her, just says the female, but that's not her name in the show, but we're calling her that because of the comic books. We don't know her name yet, so may get a name in a future episode.
I don't think so. I hope they don't, because they've never named her anything other than the female, and that's the best part of it. She is the deadliest member of the boys, and it's the best part of that. There's so much history with that character that we don't know how they'll diverge from it or what they'll do, but just they're portraying her in the perfect way.
Excellent.
Which is this silent, stoic, violent nightmare that can, as you said, the guy tops himself because she's coming right for him. Yeah. So I love this introduction.
And just one that it really reminded me of, I don't know whether you guys have seen it in a while, and I think both of you have seen the movie, Battle Royale. The opening of that film has the character who's won the Battle Royale with all of her other school kids. It's a movie about school kids being put on an island. They all have to kill each other, and whoever wins is victorious and gets to leave the island effectively. But the opening scene of that has a child covered in blood, looking like a very cute, normal school child, but you realize she's killed hundreds of people, and that's why she's covered in so much muck and dirt, effectively. And that's the same kind of style, the same visual image that I saw in this character, the female, that she looks like she's sitting there watching K-pop. She's watching just normal pop music on TV. She gets continually drawn back to that K-pop music over and over again, this really cutesy, candy floss boy band music from Korea. There's J-pop as well, Japanese pop music as well. similar types of music, just general fluff, but she's brought back to that. And it really reminded me of that image from Battle Royale of just a cute school child that's killed hundreds of people. That's what it really feels like. So I'm intrigued about what more we're going to see about the female in the show.
Yeah, I'm hoping they do dive into kind of more of it. So boys, I think that brings us to the end of our boys moments. Mm-hmm. Let's bring it into our 7 moments. Derek, do you want to take this away?
Yeah, I think this one we can all probably jump in on because it's quite a central point of the episode, really. It's this transoceanic flight 37. This whole concept, effectively, where Madeline Stillwell has decided that she's going to prove to the government that they need the 7 to be working for the army, effectively. She gets a bit of a tip-off and heads up on a plane that's just been captured by terrorists in international waters, so they're able to go in and intercept it. And if it succeeds, then definitely all the armies of the world are going to want to have the boys on their side. The American army, anyway, is going to want the boys on their side to go into war zones and take care of everything. Doesn't really go to plan, but I do want to call it the initial part of it because it speaks again to what we were talking about the last couple of episodes. As Homelander and Queen Maeve arrive, they absolutely destroy the terrorists. They don't just incapacitate them. They don't take off an arm or, stop them, punch them out or anything like that you'd see in a normal movie or a normal TV show. Homelander absolutely destroys the 4 guys that are there. Maeve gets one of them. I think she knocks him out, but he destroys them. He is violent as hell with the guys. And what I find interesting with that is that's something you don't see in any other superhero movie. And you still see everybody on the plane cheering. You still see everybody on the plane really happy that they've been saved and not really caring about how violently they've been saved. Yeah? Like he cuts one guy in half with his laser beams from his eyes.
Time.
As the guy melts to the ground. But by doing that, he effectively kills the plane as well. This is because the last of the terrorists that are on board shoots the pilot in the head. The instant reaction from Homelander is to cut through him with his laser eyes, and that cuts through the engine and the control system for the plane as well. So,
but that's it. I mean, for me, these scenes here on the flight and the hostage rescue and everything that transpires, I mean, is exactly why I love to hate Homelander. Mm-hmm. And I think he is absolutely, for me, just an amazing, or one of the amazing standouts of this show. I mean, I just love how he kind of moves from, dispatching of all these hostages, which, in fairness, the passengers are like, woohoo, they're whooping away, with all of that. Yeah. And then, as it starts to go wrong, he's like, calm down, we'll all be safe. And then he's kind of out the side of his mouth going to Queen Maeve, come on, let's get out of here. We've got to leave. He's explaining they're finished. It's gone wrong. It's gone badly wrong. And we need to pretend that we've never been here. Whilst at the same time he's calming down all the passengers saying, you'll be safe and all this kind of thing. And then you have that dawning of the passengers that actually it has gone badly wrong. And these guys, Homelander and Queen Maeve are about to jump ship, and save themselves. Yeah. And it's then that nasty anger, as his eyes glow red and he threatens all the passengers. He's just literally gone from saying it's all about you, even though he's doing the saving, to, effectively stay back, everyone. Otherwise I'm going to laser you. And it's just fantastically well done as far as I'm concerned. I really, really like it. Yeah. And because then he's this consummate politician right at the end, of this episode where he turns this disaster for Vought into an absolute win for them, by saying that they never got there, and if they had been allowed to get there, this would never have happened. I mean, it's the sheer audacity of Homelander, and it's just, it plays so well to the sheer audacity of what we see from politicians at the moment. And so it's in part funny, it's shocking, it's bloody, it's violent, it's a little slapstick sometimes. I think him saying to Queen Maeve, let's get out, and then, no, you're safe, don't worry, don't panic, is just really nicely done. Like, he moves between all these different things so well. So I thought this was whilst tragic, it was a fantastic arc within this episode for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He certainly proved to that comment that he made to Madeline Stillwell a couple of episodes ago, where he says, I don't need anybody to throw me lines to promote the fact that we should be in the army. I'm able to do that myself. You know, you see her looking on when he's on TV and going from this shocked, oh God, this could ruin our company, to that kind of proud moment almost, where she's saying, look how he's turned this around, as he gets all the people watching on his side chanting Homelander, Homelander, when he's the one that let them all die, and in fact killed them all by destroying the plane, effectively, by destroying the controls on the plane, you know. So it is a really interesting arc. You're absolutely right.
I love this. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds terrible when you think about the blood and the gore and the death, but this scene is a pivotal moment in the comic books, but it's also a pivotal moment here. Mm-hmm. It's a slight difference, which I probably won't go into just yet, but the just seeing this brought me back to when you read this when I read this for the first time, mm-hmm. and you're disgusted, you're appalled, but it's like kind of, I know there's that term car crash TV. It's very much like that, right, where you're just like, oh my God, this is happening and this is the way it's being done. And like when you see him, like you said, when he kind of flares up his beams to tell people to stay back. Yeah. And just watches the plane as it goes down. Mm-hmm. Is crazy. And yeah, like people are cheering for him as he eviscerates people. Yeah. Yeah. And then again, that slapstick moment, John, that you talked about, where he says, kind of to the little girl, oh, everything's going to be fine. And you're like, oh my God. Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah. But seeing him then, as you said, moving on to that kind of scene on the beach where he just pretends to well up. Mm-hmm. He, as you said, Stillwell's like a proud mama there. Yeah. Because she's created this monster who is a PR machine.
He is amazing. Absolutely.
Is able to turn it around on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, Maeve as well, Queen Maeve throughout these scenes is so interesting to watch, because we've seen her react to the kind of things he said in the past and not let him see her react. This time she is absolutely horrified at this idea that he would leave every single person behind, including women and children. And he has the rationale that if he takes anybody, if he saves anybody, then they've already made this decision to only save one or two people, and they will just tell everybody that it's their fault, effectively. So, but Maeve can't see the rationale to that. You see her on the beach, even with the cameras and the microphones in the face of Homelander, and them asking for a word from her. She doesn't really say anything. No. She just stands watching out at the ocean and seeing all of the rubbish and debris from the plane in the ocean, just staring about what they created and what they've done. She can't switch it off as quickly as Homelander can. And it does spark a little bit of a guess for the rest of the season. I was wondering how the hell somebody like Homelander ever gets taken down. Even the boys could have trouble with someone like him. And I kind of get the feeling that Maeve is being twisted by him to go after him herself. So I'm kind of get the feeling they're going to start pitting Queen Maeve versus Homelander for the rest of the season.
Which is never a good matchup.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you're right. Like, Queen Maeve is really, looks uncomfortable as she's staring out across the sea and all the debris and hearing Homelander. And, I think her actions on the plane, are supposed to bring sympathy, or you feel this sympathy for her. But at the end of the day, she also does leave. And she gets into Homelander's arms to escape that fate that all the others do. So I agree. It's not that she's happy with that decision, but it's that comment on people that maybe don't take actions, but stand by and watch it happen, even if they protest about having done it. And I think that's really, really interesting, because I just think that, can you imagine if the first 3 episodes didn't really give you that hint that Homelander was that bad? Because you kind of, this whole thing, you kind of go, okay, we kind of get he has the capacity to do bad things. We've seen him punch that sniper in the skyscraper. Yep. He's certainly got that twisted, malevolent streak. You've seen that even amongst the Seven with him threatening the Deep, and taking down the mayor's plane in episode 1. So you know that there's some dubious morals there. So even though this is still a shock, you imagine the shock if that had been buried a little further until this time, where you're just like going, what? Because, I mean, it still is a shock, but I just think, what about the shock? You know, the reaction, the shock for me would have just been off the charts, I think, on that.
Yeah.
But, I thought this was, I thought this was just fantastic. I am wondering though, you know, we are presuming that everyone's dead, and I'm not sure that anyone could probably survive that. But, you know, maybe one person will, or, you know, will they see the laser scarring across the dashboard, in the cockpit? You know, even though they're trying to cover this up, ultimately is stuff going to leak out, whether it's through some kind of investigation or some kind of, Queen Maeve sort of turning on him.
Yeah.
I think what we'll probably get is similar to what happened with the councilman, the mayor's plane. The Deep will cover up part of it. He managed to get rid of the 2 little burns on the engine and the mayor's, so most likely he'll do something with the wreckage there.
Maybe, but again, the Deep is being turned against Homelander as well, so maybe he'll also be turned against Vought Industries too. So yeah, definitely some interesting stuff in here, but yeah, you can't have a situation where your main characters are covering up everything bad that's happened. They're definitely going to be found out at some point in the future. There's definitely going to be something happening. That wasn't the only shocking moment of the episode. Who wants to go first on this one? Because I could see your notes, guys. I know you both have something very similar here. Chris or John, which one are you going to go first?
John, you open up this because we'll follow how the episode structure goes.
Yes, this is kind of starting from the beginning with the Deep, also known as Kevin. You know, this whole through line was hugely hilarious. For me, I just thought it was so good. You know, the Deep going to therapy. And, you know, you hear about his love of dolphins, and
they're hilarious.
You know, that, you know, he wants to save them because they're slaughtered in Japan. I love the fact that he says that they have regional accents. So, I mean, all I've got is this idea that Flipper's going, by Ek, lad, you know, or, do you fancy a brew? Or, you know, up the apples and pears kind of thing. I'm just imagining dolphins with regional accents. And I thought that was just so good. And, you know, but he talks about effectively being bullied and taunted by A-Train with the blow-up dolphin, with the lipstick around the blowhole.
Blow-up dolphin, that's, yes.
Yeah, I'm still not entirely sure whether the therapist was also trying to, like, hold back the laughter whilst the Deep was talking about it, because there was something slightly insincere about, you know, when the Deep's kind of saying how he feels like he's a diversity hire and a joke. And the therapist comes in with, but Kevin, where would that Carnival cruise ship be without you? I presume at the bottom of the ocean, but all I've got is this idea that the Deep rescued the Love Boat or something.
Basically, yeah.
And it's just, you know, it's just really, really funny. But, you know, he's obviously dealing with a lot of insecurities. Again, so many things were racing through my mind seeing this. I thought it was so well portrayed. You know, I have that I'm a strong, confident fish. You know, he's got the tape under the pillow at night or underneath his coral, at night. It's just going around, I'm a strong, confident fish.
Absolutely. I love when he goes to Madeline Stillwell with his new plan, you know. He's talking about that he wants to do something new with his renown, with his abilities, and effectively he wants to go against the thing he's been promoting for a couple of years.
Exactly.
And she's right in the middle of this crisis that's been going on with the rest of the Seven, and it's like, all right, if it only takes a minute, then you can come in and say it. And he's like, I want to save the dolphins. She's just ushers him out of the room going, Kevin, just stick to what it is you're good at, okay? And then closes the door in his face. Just, again, the Deep started off as an awful character. I didn't want to see anything of him, but he just keeps getting kicked worse and worse as the episodes are going on.
Yeah, I think he definitely gets the wrong end of the stick when Madeline Stillwell goes, play to your strengths to Kevin, and he goes, yes, I will. I've just been told I should seize the moment and all that. But I think over to Chris, cue dolphin dirt.
Or I should say, dolphins are dirty. This is perhaps my favorite scene in this episode. Yeah. Just because it's, your brain is filling in the blanks of what the dolphin is saying to the Deep. And he's just like, and then at the very end, he's agreeing to it. He's just like, let's just get out of here and then we'll figure out everything. Like he comes around. I'm like, how dirty is this fish?
How dirty is
this
Deep?
Mammal?
He says, I'll touch it, right? But just, we need to talk about this later, basically. It's kind of, you're kind of going, I understand he had a plan to free some dolphins from this, but it feels like he chose a very special dolphin to him.
And then just the
one.
The cops coming in, doing it, and then we get this spectacular moment of the slamming on the brakes and the dolphin just shooting like a rocket. It's glorious because it's slowed down. Mm-hmm. And you get to see the look on his face and the look on the dolphin's face as it slowly goes through the windshield and lands on the ground. And I'm like, okay, so they're going to pick it up. And no. And then it just gets even better. Derek, take this one because I can't.
Genuinely was not expecting the truck to come
at all
afterwards. Certainly the slow motion scene as it goes through the window to the sounds of the Spice Girls, If You Want to Be My Lover, just after that conversation that has been had between the dolphin and the Deep.
Spice up your life.
Yes, absolutely. That is a fantastically shocking scene, and to cut back to the Deep just realizing he's jeopardized everything for this moment, and the cops have just made him effectively kill the dolphin he was trying to save. Another sad moment for the Deep in this episode, but I couldn't stop watching this scene. It's so well put together.
Absolutely.
It's just as you said, it's just the music, it's the animation, and it's the truck, because I could see him quickly grabbing the dolphin and running away with it, or like jumping really high, but it's just that ending is literally all I had in my notes was, well, they've got more tuna.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking like fish tartare or something.
Fish tacos?
Yeah, ceviche or something.
It was just brilliant. And as you said, he's thrown it all away for this moment. So I'm dying to see episode 5 to see where it gets to and what. But it's funny that it calls back to the therapy scene because the rest of the 7 putting in the inflatable dolphin with the lipstick and then him actually admitting to it to a degree.
Basically, yeah.
I was just like, oh, brilliant.
I think as well, I mean, Chase Crawford, who plays the Deep, just absolutely nailed this, pardon the pun, because I love the fact that he was just spraying the water over the dolphin with the pump spray, and just that conversation, where it starts off like innocuous with, I like you too. Now's not the time to, I'll touch it. Then will you shut up? And then, you have the fly. I know it's not technically a fish, but you have the flying fish, through the air, and you're just like, I did not expect to see that in this show.
Absolutely.
So for me, this is just, this is how you write a script that you can have a Spice Girls through thread through the entire episode, linked from a sweet moment of Billy Butcher and his presumably dead wife through to a dirty Randy Dolphin chatting up his rescuer, to like the shocking revelation that these superheroes will let, an entire plane of passengers and innocent people crash into the ocean. Mm-hmm. And you're like going, some shows require an entire 22 episodes to do anything. Yeah. And this is just so good. So intense, so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely really, really good. That's it, I think, for the 7 moment, the antagonist moment for the episode. Got a couple of other outstanding moments. Just my one, we already talked about this Spice Girls speech. John, you mentioned Butcher's Spice Girls speech. I just really liked how he tied the whole thing together into this conversation with Frenchie and Mother's Milk, who were fighting over effectively what happened and what broke up the group. Because we hear that Frenchie has a tendency to not follow orders, and that is what's annoying Mother's Milk so much, is that the last time this happened, the last time they all were working together, he ignored orders, which was to follow Lamplighter, and Lamplighter went over and killed their former boss's grandkids. So I'll be intrigued to know a bit more about that, but it did seem to almost separate the group until Billy Butcher went back to the Spice Girls, the source of all that is good, apparently, and taught them that they are like the Spice Girls. Together, they are something good. Apart, they're absolutely useless. But I like that it's also taken into the female as well, that Frenchie goes to the female effectively saying she could also be a Spice Girl. That's how he convinces the other guys to go and talk to her. Maybe she could be another one of the Spice Girls. And I think the last line you hear with Billy about her is he throws the grenade going, she's not a Spice Girl. So it is used all the way throughout the episode. I love just those lines about what's Sporty Spice up to. Nobody has any idea. Posh is making clothes for anorexics. Baby Spice can't even get a story on page 6 of the Daily Mail of all things. Scary's up to her eyeballs in lawsuits. And Ginger's released 3 albums, all that will make your ears bleed.
Absolutely great stuff. I'd also like on this the whole Lamplighter aspect, that Mother's Milk really, it blames Frenchie for the Lamplighter going off and effectively killing Mallory's grandchildren. So again, it's another connection through here from the last episode. A little bit more to that backstory, slowly being leaked out through the episodes, which is really nice, actually.
And we're guessing this is the reason why Lamplighter is no longer a member of the Seven, that he was made to forcibly retire so that Starlight took over from him, is because he murdered some children.
Yeah, exactly.
So that could very well be the reason why he's not in the team now.
No comment.
I think, speaking of French as well, I think my other moment is I really kind of, although in some ways it looks like it didn't work, I liked that moment of bonding between Frenchie and the female in the tech shop, where, he's there talking about how he was kind of locked up by his own father and restricted and effectively abused as well. So I like that little moments, that little touch, that they have this connection, which she seems to kind of buy into until she's disturbed and sort of pelts it out of the shop and into the subway. So I thought that was a nice little moment, because I think it's really something that tied nicely into his conversation with Mother's Milk whilst they're staking out the noodle joint, which is, that Mother's Milk is always, has got his girlfriend, Jetty. He's not even telling her where he is. Mother's Milk has an issue with the fact that Frenchie may have a new woman each day, but he's free to explore, and, it's all one big happy family, and I thought this was really connected in with that a bit, because I was wondering about Frenchie's current girlfriend, I suppose she is, Cherie, because she does have a nice phrase where she says, he's there, he asks her for some bit of kit that he needs, the smoke grenade, and she goes, "Don't make me use that gas on you, pumpkin." So I'm just wondering, is the female also going to maybe, sort of disrupt the Frenchie and Cherie as well in this moment? Is it just simply a connection, or does Frenchie harbour something else there? I don't know. I was wondering, was there some kind of superpower involved with the female? Because there's that moment when you see Frenchie going in and opening up the cage to let her out, and he just kind of goes, I had a feeling about her. And from that point onwards, he's able to identify where she is. He knows where to find her from then on. I'm wondering, is there something that she's drawing
him towards her, you know. I also feel very bad about laughing about Frenchie's story about his father being bipolar and trying to strangle him with a Hello Kitty duvet last episode, because it sounds like he's much more abusive than we had thought when we laughed about that story from him last episode.
Well, that's it, because one of the other things that we do find out from Starlight is that Translucent also, whilst he does have issues around sort of personal space, you know, he has a kid that he spends a lot of time with, and he's kind of a bit of a loner compared to the other 7, because he had sort of an early marriage, early sort of child that destroyed the marriage, the separation, and so he's putting a lot of his effort into being a lone parent. So again, whilst maybe he deserved what was coming to him ultimately in that cell and with the C4 up his rear, again, it's that kind of stormtrooper moment where he had this other life which no one else really saw. Because and we get that with the A-Train as well, saying, you know what I have to do, when he has that conversation with Popclaw, where he's like, I'm contracted to be like that in front of the TV. But he seems to be you know, much more connected with Popclaw. You know, he's trying to save her from Homelander if he finds out about the female and this Compound V sort of illicit trade or whatever's going on there. So, I like how, you know, it's all a little, sort of dubious in terms of these other Supes, as well.
Well, yeah, they've just completely made the whole storyline completely murky. We can't believe Billy Butcher anymore. You know, we now can kind of guess that Billy Butcher is on his own vendetta for whatever happened to his wife that we saw at the start of this episode. And he's been convincing everybody around him that the supers are all bad. When in fact, what we know right now, the only super that's definitely bad is Homelander. And, maybe one other, that we've also seen back in episode 1. But a lot of the supers just seem to be, you know, acting the way they're told by PR agents and a marketing department in a massive organization, but not necessarily bad people. So that was quite an interesting revelation, actually.
Yeah,
good call,
absolutely.
John.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this overall connection that they start having. Again, it comes from the source material. There's a very deep relationship there. I'm not going to go into any of your wild theories. For once, I'm not doing the wild theories. This is interesting to listen to. I do want to call out the fight with female and A-Train. So she does take on A-Train toe to toe. Like, A-Train, like, smashes her repeatedly, very quickly against a big stone wall.
That is a fantastically shot scene. I must say, I was really surprised at that. I'm definitely surprised that her head was still intact. I was expecting maybe 1 or 2 smacks and that would be the end of the female in this episode, because, that was a concrete wall, at full speed.
No, and it's good. It's just good to see that, because that does lead us to potentially where we will go in the remaining 4 episodes.
Maybe,
It's going to be interesting to see how they portray that, because that was always some of the interesting things, seeing the boys go to toe with some of these Supes, and how they do that. So I'm really, really interested to see where they take that.
Excellent. Any other notes for you, Chris? Any other moments for you?
My outstanding moment is a very brief moment, but actually calls back to what, Derek, what you were talking about 2-3 episodes ago. Belief Expo. We see very quickly when, on the TV behind, Annie and Hughie, when they're on their date, you see the Christian superhero and talking about Belief Expo and the power of Christ and all that, with special appearances by Homelander and Starlight. And we get that backstory by Starlight saying, yeah, I'm donating my appearance fee. So the rest of them are not.
Yes.
They're taking their appearance fees. And it's just so much fun to see that call back to the stakeholder moment.
Absolutely. And again, Ezekiel is the other bad Supe, right? Ezekiel's the one that works for Capes for Christ to tell people that homosexuality is wrong, yet he's gay himself. And we saw that in the first episode. So once again, the other bad character. Hopefully we'll see a bit more of Ezekiel in the rest of the episodes, because you kind of need to set up the bad guys versus the good guys. We're talking about protagonists and antagonists, and I think we're running out of people in our antagonist section because, well, now we've got Queen Maeve, we've got the Deep, who are kind of moving towards our protagonist section a bit more now, aren't they?
Well, we still have A-Train.
Yes, but...
And Black Noir, who barely's been in it.
But we're starting to feel very sorry for A-Train as well. You know, there's a couple of things. You know, I'm feeling sorry for A-Train with his girlfriend. You know, the whole conversation they went through that he is totally in love with her, but has to portray this character.
Play is going to play
as well. So,
you know,
so that's good.
But there was
that moment alone. Yeah. I hate the A-Train because that's that type of man who, no, honey, I still love you. I've just gone and done all these horrible things, but man, I still love you. And it's just that constant where he's only doing that now because she knows about Compound V and could destroy him.
But that's it. In that moment, he was acting so creepy. I actually did think he was going to kill her.
Right.
I thought it was just going to be kill, you know, get the PR people to clear it up, you know, make it out as though, again, he just ran through her, or something like that, because he's come across as a bit of a doofus, really. And, you know, he's got his public persona and his private personas. It's just arrogant doofus, really. But in that moment, whatever he's doing with this Compound V, and there's the suggestion, you know, it comes from Ezekiel because of the package found at the place where the female was being held captive. And Mother's Milk links it back to Ezekiel's, this organization that then is in the Believe Expo. So I think that's really kind of interesting, but just coming back to A-Train, I really did think for that moment, it was almost like you got a glimpse into the deep, center of his soul, and it wasn't nice at all. He's not just kind of stupid, and a bit jockey, and so on. You know, I really did think he was going to end Popclaw because he's right. She is the only one that could possibly have given away this whole location. Yeah. And in that sense, he's pretty smart as well. So, A-Train, I think, has got a lot of explaining to do still. Interesting. Which is good.
Yeah, so we'll see how all that goes in episode 5. But gentlemen, I think that wraps up our other outstanding moments. Any notes on this episode?
I've just got one, and it's more just because the line tickled me. I really enjoyed Billy Butcher's sort of delivery of it, or Carl Urban, and maybe it's a slight play on his wandering accent as well, but there is that moment where he's passing himself off as an NYPD detective after the lady in the makeup shop has been killed by the female. She's the one doing the nails. And as he comes in, you know, he kind of goes, "What's going on here?" kind of thing. And the policeman just goes, "What's with the accent?" And it's just his response where he goes, "What's up with yours?" You know, and it's just classic. It's like, I just wasn't expecting it. And it just made me giggle. And I think it's just that kind of interaction, really is good fun.
He seems really aggressive then as well. He's always asked this bloody question, "What's wrong with your accent?" He's like, "I'm not taking it anymore. What's wrong with your accent? Yours is different from mine as well."
Yeah, exactly. You know, there are some really good lines in here. I mean, I think with, the deputy director as well, he talks about, you know, as soon as the people find out that the Supes are juice junkies, you know, no one's going to want them on the defense department. The fatal cunnilingus section, as well, that he brings up with Popclaw just as he threatens her, just brings you the memories back to obviously the head squash and
Xenia on the top. Remember her?
Yeah, exactly.
From GoldenEye.
Yeah. Exactly. I think it's time for Chris's Corner. Chris, what have you got for us this episode?
Welcome to Chris's Corner. Da, 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 da. I was trying a new theme song. If anyone has a good theme song for Chris's Corner, please let me know.
But that's perfect, Chris.
I think it's almost like that kind of old 70s kind of like Chris's Corner. Da, 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 da. Anyway, welcome to Chris's Corner, the podcast within a podcast. Today I'm going to talk to you about the female and the deep. How they go together? Well, they don't. I just like talking about them. First of all, I'm not going to get too much into the female, but she is directly from the comic book. She's one of the boys. She's the most deadly. She actually came in very early on in the comics, and the title comes directly from that arc where we are introduced to her. The Female of the Species was the name of those comic books. It's around issue 38 where we do get her origin. I'm not going to, as I said, I'm not going to go into that because I'm not sure what they're going to do and how it will differ. Because I feel we will get a somewhat of an origin for her in this season. If we don't, towards the end on episode 8, I will do a Chris's Corner and include some of the different origins. But as we saw with Frenchie's origin, it's being slightly tweaked for the show. So it's not too bad. I will say that the quote, the title, The Female of the Species is more deadly than male, is a reference to the Rudyard Kipling poem of the same name. So that's always a fun one. Now, moving on to our ever-loving, or I should say dolphin-loving, friend, the Deep. As some of you may have guessed, the Deep is the allegory of Aquaman, or the Submariner in the comics. So he's always been in the comics a long-time member of the Seven. And he's been, as we heard, the King of the Seas. So it's always interesting to see how they play on that.
On the rivers and the docks and
yeah, exactly.
Body of water, puddles, maybe.
Yeah, and he has lots of friends. He can really talk to any shellfish, prawn, plankton, Gruber. His friends, probably his best friends, are cod. So they're really playing up to that robot chicken Aquaman joke. Which is that he's the most useless member of the team. He looks completely different in the comic books than he does in this. In the show, he obviously has his suit, which is much more like the Aquaman suit of current day. In the comic books, he's got somewhat something similar, but he's got this big, massive kind of helmet in the comic books. That he says he cannot remove because of an Atlantean curse, which is all BS. He's just a man in a diving suit.
Right.
His powers do include super strength and flight and severe durability. But he doesn't talk to fish. So that's kind of the fun part.
Okay.
It's this contempt, and kind of disregard from the rest of the Seven and the slags he gets. And, it really does turn him into a bit more of a bad character. But he's usually more mature and civilized. It's because he's more mature and civilized, say, than A-Train or Jack from Jupiter or any of the other kind of Supes. They kind of dial into him and kind of really do some terrible things.
It's so weird, because in the show, I would say most immature character.
Yeah.
And certainly has no respect for other people, given how we were introduced to him in the first episode. I think the only thing they've kind of twisted there, I suppose, is that he does care about animals. He does care about the animals in the ocean and the creatures in the ocean. So that's what we've seen in this episode mainly. But, yeah, I would definitely say they've changed his character quite a lot, but still gets all the contempt and disregard of all the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's some really good pieces which happen with his character kind of quite later on in the comic books. I will say that I'm going to save some of them to see what happens in season 2 and where we end with the Deep, in the end of season 1. But he's definitely an interesting belle. And that's the end of this section of Chris's Corner. Please play the outro music, Derek. Chris's Corner. I really want some better theme music than that, ladies and gentlemen. I know you do too. So, with that terrible theme song I've just put in, tell me, John, what did you think of episode 4, Female of the Species of the Boys?
I absolutely loved this. I would give this 5 sushi dolphins on toast out of 5. Yum, yum, yum.
TV podcast industries do not condone the eating of dolphins on toast.
I condone the eating of
the best bit is the blowhole.
Nice Futurama reference. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I love this episode. I think this is just quality stuff. I think I said it before. I think writing that is able to interweave Spice Girls throughout it is kind of a phenomenal thing to do. I think for me, and I think it's this constant intrigue that I'm getting, certainly about what's going to happen on in the future, such as like with Hughie and Starlight. What's the back history of someone like Billy Butcher and with Mallory files that are just being teased out, leaked out really nice and slowly. And front and center, you have the boys going about their business, the internal dynamics of that, the kind of distrust between Frenchie and Mother's Milk. You have the Seven and the corporate intrigue around Vought International. And I mean, for me, I think Anthony Starr as Homelander is just fabulous. I thought Chase Crawford was really, really good, in this as well. And Carl Urban as Billy Butcher, I just love how, everything around the boys hangs off him. We even do get to see his duck eggs in this episode as well, which is it's
always a positive.
Yeah, always good to see Carl Urban's duck eggs. I think this to me is absolutely a standout. And again, it's not going to be to everyone's taste, given Dolphins having, randy chit chat, Dolphins then being run over by, articulated truck, plus, the themes and that. Some people aren't going to be onto it, but for me, I think this is probably some of the best TV I've seen. I really want to watch it. And maybe that's because I've not read the comics. I don't know, but I love this. So absolutely 5 sushi dolphins on toast out of 5 with a blowhole on top.
All that seasoning.
Yummy.
Derek, tell me, what did you think of this episode of The Boys?
This is definitely the best episode so far, The Boys. The balance of humor, the violence in it from the meeting of this new character of the female is fantastic. That coupled with this kind of getting together of Annie and Hughie, really, really good, and learning so much more about the boys, and learning so much more about how evil Homelander is as well. Like, this is a dark turn for this character and really enjoyable to watch. I think they're doing a really good balance of getting all of these things right to make into a really intriguing show and a really interesting show to watch. So excellent episode for me. Dying to see episode 5, definitely. Chris, last up, but what did you think of this episode of The Boys?
I can't say much more outside of what you guys have already said. It really is. This is a show that's going from strength to strength in each episode. Typically, mid-season, you will see a bit of a dip. But they're really, as you said, showing that they can pull off crazy humor at the same time as pulling off crazy violence and pulling off other things in between. So for me, it's just the whole lot is fun. And I'm really enjoying it, and I want to see where it goes. But I will say, John, the difference is, even having read the comics and knowing where a lot of this stuff comes, I'm still enjoying it thoroughly.
Great stuff.
It's so different enough that I'm still wanting and left questioning where things will go. So yeah, I'm thoroughly enjoying it and thoroughly having fun with it.
Excellent. Let's get on to our feedback section, on to Frenchie's letters. First piece of feedback came in from Steve Brown the other night. Late night, Steve was listening to our episode 3, where I mentioned that Jack Quaid is the son of Randy Quaid and Meg Ryan, which is completely incorrect, because Randy Quaid was not married to Meg Ryan. That was Dennis Quaid, a very famous actor also from the 80s. Thanks, Steve, for pointing that out. The guys didn't seem to be too interested, because I don't think either of them know who Dennis Quaid or Meg Ryan are. But yes, so completely wrong. My sincere apologies. I don't normally get that stuff wrong. But yes, it would be very scandalous if he was the son of Randy Quaid and Meg Ryan. My apologies.
Dennis Quaid is excellent.
Yes, I do know Dennis Quaid, but all the Quaids kind of meld together in the 80s for me. It's almost like a Quaid too far.
We got some feedback from Bob Phillips on episode 4. He says, lots of lovely work about how the patriarchy works in life and in genre. My favourite 7 moment from the episode is Queen Maeve stood with a manipulative, evil, self-centred supervillain in thin air after having tried so hard to do some good. She's not yet evil, just crushed. A best boys moment, seeing the lovely, kind Frenchman in all his tender ways, rescuing the captive, loving his chérie, taking down the fugitive, all made so much better since the OCD of MM has been explained by Chris last week. Nice one. Well done.
Excellent stuff, yeah.
Chris's Corner, proving its worth. I love it.
The podcast within a podcast strikes again.
And Bob says, best other moment for the episode, the point where Hughie calls out Annie for being deliberately rubbish. I mean, that's about my level of bowling prowess, but cracking point again about how the world works with feminine attributes. Yeah, really, really interesting moment there between the two characters as Annie kind of goes, well, every time I say to anybody that I'm good at things, instantly they just stop calling me. So I've stopped saying that I'm good at anything.
Yeah, thanks, Bob, for that. Yeah, on Queen Maeve, I'm not entirely sure. I think the fact that she was willing just to leave and not bring it up, she's complicit with Homelander there. I think she's slightly more sympathetic, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure she's that much less evil than Homelander. I think she's just probably got more of a conscience, so will struggle with it for longer than Homelander will.
Yeah.
But ultimately, give it 6 months and she'll be back with her homies sort of doing workout drills on the crash mats.
Maybe. Thanks so much for that, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob, and I'm glad you're enjoying Chris's Corner. I'm glad it's actually doing what we hoped it would do, which would give that more bit of information that would help you enjoy each episode a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us to the end of this episode and review of The Boys episode 4. Don't forget, if you want to leave us some voicemail feedback or just feedback in general, don't forget you can go to tvpodcastindustries.com or send us an email at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. We will be back with our review of season 1, episode 5 of The Boys, Good for the Soul, next Wednesday. Until then, don't forget to subscribe to all of our feeds on TV Podcast Unity so you never miss an episode. Share the love, share the podcast, and leave us an all review when you're there. We can definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much for me. This is Chris signing off.
Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back with Pennyworth next Monday and, of course, The Boys next Wednesday on tvpodcastindustries.com.
Yeah, thank you so much, boys and girls, for joining us. As always, it's a pleasure talking with you. Whatever about sharks after this episode, I'm never swimming with dolphins. But after I'm over that fear, we'll be back to speak with you again soon. Bye.
You fear what they'll do to you?
Yeah.
So dirty. Don't touch me there, dolphin.
Yeah. Who knew what Flipper did once they shouted cut?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.